right, Ashley, thank you for joining us. We are in the Streaking with Friends podcast. And as a reminder, the purpose of this podcast is entirely for people to get more comfortable with telling their own story and give them an opportunity to not only spend time reflecting on things that might have occurred in their past, but also become more comfortable with that story and then also get more comfortable with telling that story, hopefully to be able to inspire others that may have either experienced similar things and might be reluctant to share, or have experienced similar things and reluctant to examine that and observe that and accept that. So the entirety of this is to inspire and encourage and also give you a chance to kind of speak your truth. So in a real simple way, just thanks for being here, Ashley. And the first question would really just kind of be, tell us a little bit about yourself. So help me understand your story.
Cool. Well, thanks for choosing me. Stories coming in. It's good to be the first. Am I your first interviewer?
You're not. No. So I have one already. No worries. Yeah, not a problem. I just haven't uploaded it yet because my thought was I wanted to kind of batch them together. I wanted to have at least a few so that way once I got in a bit of a rhythm, I could I could kind of start releasing them regularly, and then I would record them as I went.
I have found sharing story has helped a lot, especially with what happened in the last couple of years. So that's why I didn't hesitate. I was like, you know what? Why not? I already share, I feel like I share it with like my coworkers. They're in shock because a lot of people don't. You're not always talking about what you've gone through in your life, and you're not always people are shocked about what you've overcome. As far as my life is, I would say very similar to a lot of Latinos. Since I was born in Puerto Rico and growing up in Puerto Rico, or
Ashley, I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I'm kind of getting like a little bit of, I don't know. It's kind of strange. It's like you're breaking up every couple of words, and I'm only hearing half words.
No, I don't. Might could be my connection. So
That's actually a lot
this
better.
better? Okay, maybe it's
Yeah,
just
I
where
don't
I
know
have.
what happened. Yeah, I don't know.
That's fine. I'll just hold it. I had it placed in a phone holder. Anyways, so as I was what I was trying to say was that my life is or my upbringing is a little similar to most like Latino folks, where you're raised in a religious background, like a strong religious background. Like some people would say, I've been seeing a lot of memes on like holiness church or Pentecostal. I don't know which one, you know, which one you want to call it, but yeah, we had all the restrictions that you could imagine growing up. And
So
so,
that's a thing that's consistent with the Latino upbringing is to be
oh
pretty religious. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, you're either Catholic or you're like Pentecostal. It seems like, for the most part. For the most part, and that's like in the Caribbean. Like you're involved in some type of religion. And so growing up it was very limiting. It was, you couldn't it was limiting to your like identity, because you couldn't dress up. You couldn't, not that you couldn't dress up, but you couldn't wear pants. You couldn't dye your hair. You couldn't do your eyebrows. So you're a teenager, you can't shave your legs. It was very strict. Like, and you couldn't wear earrings. There was like one time when I was like worship I was a worship leader during my youth and for the youth, and the pastor would tell me to remove my earrings, or even when I was just singing regular, they would sometimes let me join during regular services, adult services on Sundays, and then he would tell me to like remove my ears, and he wouldn't stop like pulling his ear until I removed them while I was singing. Yeah, it was intense. So then later on, like 4 years later, his daughter would be singing up front in the pulpit, and she was wearing everything and jeans and pants. It was kind of funny to see because it was so strict back then, and you were like nervous to disappoint the pastor. Um,
Right.
but so that was my upbringing, and that was in Florida. I had already we moved to the States from Puerto Rico when I was 9 years old, so it was in '96. And So life was much different back then. I think it was much cooler as well. You had like the, you know, very stylish. You had a lot of so anyways, I feel like I missed out on a lot back then, but yeah, we weren't allowed to go to the movie theater because it was from the devil. So like you were sitting in chairs where sinners were sitting. So it was and to think that of course I still hold my faith very dear, very close. I'm still in a close relationship with God, but definitely not to those extremes. I got to learn a lot more. My mom, after a while, she ended up noticing the effects, and so she kind of removed us slowly out of that. But I mean, I spent all my high school years basically in that kind of setting, to where my sister and I would sometimes bring our pants and change in the school bus from our skirts in the
Yeah.
morning so that we could feel like a little normal,
So you
whatever
got a
that
little
means.
rebel in you. I see that. Yeah. I guess when it's that
Yes.
restrictive, I guess there's going to be a natural tendency to try to rebel, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So as far as my upbringing that happened, and then I feel like that's what led me to join the military. Because but that's crazy, because it's like you go from one doctrine to like another extreme. um
Hmm.
but my but I was like, if I can put up with this here, then I can just make it in the army. Because I was like, they're gonna give me a job, they're gonna give me money and a car and a place to live. So I was like, I'm set. I could just be
Sure.
independent on my own. And at that point as well, my mother did not agree with it, but my mother and I we were similar personalities, and we kind of butted heads a lot at that time. So it wasn't the best situation. I was just like, how do I get to be independent stat? And so that's what I did. And then I got a lot of pushback. A lot of people at that time, they felt like they weren't as open minded about it, and that was in 2006, and they weren't that open minded about it. They were like, "That's not where you're supposed." Even the pastor came up to me and told me, "That's not where you're supposed to be. That's not where your calling is, and I don't recommend it if you can stop it." And then so I didn't have support in the beginning, but later on, of course, my mom was like, she came along, we came to a better place once I was deployed, because I was like, oh crap, like I'm here in the desert, like I'm literally in the desert, like I anything can happen at any moment. And so we mended, for sure, mended throughout my time there. And so I'm number two out of four girls.
Where were you? Where were you deployed? What city were you in, or what country were you in?
I went to a couple places. I was in Iraq, and I went to Kuwait. I went to, I don't remember all the places by their exact name, but we called the bases, we called them like Qatar. We called them like the camp names and stuff, basically. Like they would say camp names. But I was in Spiker, which is in Tikrit, specifically where I was at. But I would visit the clinics, basically, to verify that everything's up to standard as far as keeping personnel records and stuff, or like sometimes assisting with medical air evacuations.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was actually the best, like the best, my best time in the service. And the way I got there, though, it was crazy because I was the only one that didn't have a family, and I was young. So they were like, "Tag, you're it. You're the only one that doesn't have kids. You weren't. I wasn't married at the time, so it's like we got to pick somebody, and it's gonna be you." So then I was like, "Okay, that's fine," and okay with it, because right before that assignment, basically, uh, it was Easter weekend. I got deployed in October, but that Easter weekend, I had gone through a sexual assault, and so I the person didn't get arrested then. They got arrested 10 years later, but the person, I didn't get justice. They didn't like I not believe me, but I guess it wasn't as credible or something, that they got the case. They made him pay me something, but they didn't give him any time in jail. And he saw me in the hallway of the courthouse, and he said, "You'll never get me in jail for this." But he had it all planned out. Like he had it all set up. It was Easter weekend. No one was going to be looking for me. I didn't have to report anywhere. So basically, he kidnapped me and kept me in his basement, and it was like that. I was like, this can't be my life. Like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Like, this is not real. So I had, yeah, gone through that. So then I was happy to go to deployment because I was like, this person still lives in the same state, in the same city. So I'm gonna try
Wait,
to
I'm
see
sorry.
him
I don't want to gloss over this. You were kidnapped and then kept in someone's basement. Is that what you said?
in his basement. Yeah, we had dated before. And so I had broken it up because he didn't want me to make any calls in the house to any family members. And I found that was like really weird. And actually, so how I got there to that kind of relationship was because I felt like I hadn't really experienced life because of how strict my whole life had been. And I had never had a boyfriend or anything like that. That was the first person I dated, and it was a bouncer from one of the clubs. And I was like, I left this tight little church lifestyle, joined the military. The first town I got in, I started like I went out with the people that I had met there, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, this person likes me, this guy likes me. Okay, sure. I haven't like I don't. Everybody had like the females that we were close that we in our circle, they had already experienced life like way earlier than I did, and I was like 18. And so the first person I was just like, oh, I might as well just like join the club, kind of. It was kind of, but I knew deep down I knew better than that because I knew about being pure and all this stuff. Like, but anyways, when I noticed that the guy was like restricting me, I was like, oh no, I know that that's a no go. I cannot like
Right.
lose my freedom. And so it happened textbook. It happened textbook because um I had broken up with him, and then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, he had an emergency, and so it was raining really bad. It was storming, and he said his car broke down, and can I please help him? And so, when I say textbook, it's textbook for psychology. Later on, I studied psychology, and then I got to see like, oh yeah, this is typical. Um, but he ended up calling me, and I was really busy at work, and I was just like, just give me an hour and then I'll help you and I'll go pick you up wherever he was stranded. So he was really upset because he had to wait an hour. I was the only person like in charge of the shift at the hospital, so I was like, I can't like just get up and leave. So he was really upset about it, and then I ended up going to pick him up, and that's when he was like, you're not getting out of the you're not taking the car anywhere else. You're gonna get out of the car and you're gonna come inside with me. He grabbed the key and he had like threatened me, like he was gonna put it on my neck, my car key, and then said, you have to get out of the car or you're not. Yeah. Or basically he was going to injure me. And I'm just going to give you a heads up, and I'm not sure what your I know I can tell from what I've seen so far with you that you're very knowledgeable with like life coaching. I'm not sure what your specialties are or anything like that, but sometimes if I say a lot or delay, it's because your own body tries to protect you from bringing those memories. So it's not that I'm
Mhm.
trying to delay or the conversation or anything like that, but
No
yeah,
worries.
it's
I expect that this too can be further healing, right?
yes, for sure, because this was 2000 when this happened, and so much has happened since then. That's like the least of my current situation. Because so anyways, 10 years later, I got a call from an officer, a detective, and he was like, "Hey, I needed to call you to see if maybe we could use your case, your testimony, because apparently two other women were found like almost left for dead." And
Hmm.
so 10 years later, I got justice, because it happened to two other women, and he had left them like on the road or something like that. So he did end up getting some jail time, 8 years, 8 years for three women, but whatever.
Your testimony was considered part of what kind of brought him to be convicted?
Yes, because the other two ladies, they were ladies of the night, I guess, is what the detective said. So it's what he called it, which is inappropriate, whatever. And so then they were like, "Can we use yours?" And I was just like, "That's terrible that you like women were like left for dead on the side of the road, and then you have to go back 10 years for them to get justice. That's crazy." But that was in North Carolina, and so after that, I had met who was going to be my first husband. So we had taken some time. I had taken some time with my friend, with my best friend at the time, and we decided that we weren't going to date anybody. And so we bought ourselves rings because we're in a military town, so it was going to constantly, the temptation was always going to be there, or to limit that from attracting. And so it worked for almost a year. And then that's when I met the one night we were like, okay, we're just gonna go out today and we're gonna take them off today, and we did. And that's the same day where met my husband, my first husband. And it ended up being his friend coming up to me because he was too nervous to talk to me, which I was like, oh, that's so coward, you're in the military and you can't even like come up to me. And then his friend was like, no, it's just he had too much to drink. And so it was like, okay. So I thought I gave him the wrong phone number. And yeah, because I was like, get out of here. Like, this is my first time, taking off my ring, taking off the ring. And we're going to meet people today. And then the friend has to speak for you. Like, that's, yeah. Anyways, so the next day I found out that it wasn't an error. And the one person, I had met another guy that same night. And that one person that I actually liked, I gave him the wrong number. So I guess I had too much. Oh, which is crazy story because then later on, my another friend from the hospital ended up inviting me to a brunch, and the guy was there, and he was like, "You're the one who gave me the wrong number." It was crazy. So everything comes full
And he was the one
circle.
you actually liked?
The one I actually like, yeah. So yeah, a little funny. And so next thing you know, I got with my husband, but initially, when he proposed, it was mainly because I kept asking for a reassignment since I had gone through all of that, and I was like, hey, I don't want to stay local. Please move me to another state. And then they denied the compassion reassignment. They have this thing in the military. I'm not sure how much of the military but they have this thing where you have the option to keep your assault restricted or unrestricted. So you can talk about it, and if you talk about it, then they go ahead and like try to help you to get like but if you keep it unrestricted, they don't do much for you. It's like
Right.
basically, yeah. And so I was gonna keep my case restricted, but then there happened to be one of the senior officers that was like messing around with one of the girls who was in the barracks. And the day that I came, uh, and then the day that I finally came back to the barracks, that day he was like messing around with this young soldier, and then he saw me, he saw like everything. I had like neck marks, like because the I was like sodomized like forcibly. It was a terrible incident. It was a terrible experience. I lost my voice because I was yelling at. I was The way that the house was. It was weird. The bedroom was in the basement. You come up to the first floor, and it was the kitchen and the living room, and then you just go down some stairs, like and it's the bathroom and the bedroom. And so like the it was like really deep, very low. I don't know. I've never seen a house like that. But anyways, by the time I came back, I was like really like my eyes were really dark, really my neck all bruised up and stuff. But I had said this thing. I had said a prayer. I was like, God, I know that this is not the life you want for me, but if you just save me, and I'm sorry for asking you like this, but if you just save me from this, like I'm coming back to you. And so that's how I ended up getting away. Before before I went to pick this guy up, there's another detail. Before I went to pick him up, I had a really good friend, best friend, male best friend in my unit, and I told him, hey, I'm gonna go pick this guy up, and if you don't hear from me in a couple days, let me know. And I don't know why I had said that to him, but he's the one that came to save me, basically. On that Sunday, he was like, I've been driving looking for you, and he kept knocking on the door and everything like that. And yeah, and
So you
so
had a
what?
feeling, so you had a little bit of a intuition kind of thing to know that something could possibly go wrong.
Yeah, because like all of a sudden, like he calls me and it's been 3 weeks, and he was like, "I know you miss me," and all this stuff, and I was just like, "No, but if you really need help, I'll help you. I'll pick you up," because it was pouring. It was storming really bad. So yeah, I still took the risk, and even though I felt I had a gut instinct not to, not to, but I didn't listen.
I'm glad
I
you
was
did
just
that.
Yeah, but I did tell my friend to come look for me. I was like, if you don't hear from me in the next couple of days, something's up, something's wrong, and come look for me.
Right.
And I had given him the address. But anyways, fast forward, I guess when I met my husband and all that. So we got married really quickly, but we got married because he proposed because I was gonna have orders to go to Miami. My family lived in Florida, so I was dying to get back here and try to heal and regroup. And then that didn't happen. He proposed. I cried the day of our that we were gonna get married, right before we got married, and I don't know why, but I couldn't. I just kept crying. I just kept crying, and I didn't understand it. And I got to the point to where I was like, even like, maybe love will come later. I don't know if it's love. I don't think it's love, but I know that he had told me this, that he would make sure that I would be protected. And so I guess that's kind of like why I was like, wow, look at this guy, with all what I just went through, and he wants to, be there for me.
Who's
Or
this? Your friend, or your first husband?
my first husband.
Okay.
My first husband. Yeah. So sorry if I made that confusing, but
No worries.
that was just fast forward to I was fast forwarding to I agreed to a date with the guy because I was like, oh, what the heck, I gave him the wrong number and I felt terrible, and I gave him the date. And then and I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna see see him again, because I was like, it was kind of awkward. And but either way, he ended up being a really nice guy and genuine, and he wanted to cook for me and stuff like that. Um and then I started like helping him with his house and stuff, and so then it just became like a really good friendship. We were really, 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 really good friends. I'll tell you that. I know that right now, even today, after all these years, like if I needed something, if I had an emergency, I know that I can call him and he would show
Hmm.
up like, right away. Like it wouldn't be a
Sure.
thought, a second thought. Yeah. But after that, there's something that I still try to understand or to this day, and that's um he had a hard time. He had a hard time like being social. I'll say that. So our relationship was. People would say your relationship is weird. It's like you guys are just best friends. A lot of people would just say that, like, you're just best friends. Like, he would go. Sometimes he would play video games, or he would just work on the yard, or he would just work in the house, and it was like nothing. It was like, and I'd be doing my own thing, and we'd do a lot of road trips and stuff. But people would just be like, "Oh, the way you guys just talk, it's just like if you guys were like best friends." And I'm like, "Well, what's the alternative?" I'll take it. I know where my husband is every day, like,
Right.
the only thing is that what really messed us up was the deployments. The deployments, he spent 11 months without calling me. And that took me back to when I used to beg my father to call us whenever we moved from Puerto Rico.
Mm.
And so that really messed with me. And so I ended the marriage because of that. It happened twice, and so I couldn't understand how a person says that you're their person, that they love you, and then you're not the person that they're, because everybody has to, how do you say, has to have somebody to confide in and to talk to and stuff, especially when you're on a deployment. And so I wasn't that person, so
Sure.
my ego was shot. And so with my relationship with him, definitely I just couldn't believe that was us, when he was deployed, that he just couldn't call home. And it happens to a lot of like women and a lot of spouses in the military as well, that I didn't know until like some whenever I would speak to some of them, that they would say, you left him for that. Like, I put up with that so many years in my marriage, and I'm just like, there's just no way that I'm 21. I was 21 years old at the time, and my husband didn't want to speak to me, and it went a whole 11 months, and then the next time it went 6 out of 8 months without them wanting to talk to you or call you or anything like that. And I just couldn't understand that because I had been deployed myself, His job was commo, was communications. So he had satellite phones. I packed in his bag 2 satellite phones. So I knew he had access. It just he
Sure.
didn't want to. So I couldn't deal with it. It was too hurtful. I didn't know if it was the last time they had a death in the unit, and I just couldn't imagine like not having talked to my husband and him passing away like uh
Sure.
you know and so we, on paper, officially, we lasted 10 years together. But I had already left by, and that's also textbook. You usually with in studying psychology, your marriages usually like you already know by the third year if that marriage is going to be good for you, and then sometimes people push and they push to the seventh year, but really 4 years out of that 7 years isn't really any
Right.
maybe four. You maybe had 4 good years out of the 7 years, maybe. If not, they push to 13 years, and then if not, they go to 22 or 23 that they finally call it. But yeah, we hit that mark, and I tried so hard because I was that person who didn't want to get married, and then I finally gave into it, and it wasn't until I was holding on for so long it wasn't until my grandmother ended up telling me. She was like, God wouldn't want you to be so miserable. So, and you already knew that you weren't equally yoked when you got married. And so she kind of gave me the go ahead to like, it felt like a permission to like go ahead and get divorced, because I was like,
Sure.
no, I grew up, in my faith, and divorce wasn't an option. And so what happened, how that ended was he came that last appointment where he didn't even want to come inside the house. So I was like, I'm not gonna ask you if it was infidelity. I don't want details. I'm not gonna look. I'm not gonna drive myself crazy thinking about it. I was just like, if you so he came down once he came to back to the States, he had stopped in DC, and he wasn't supposed to stop up there. He got a rental car and he came all the way down to North Carolina, and he wasn't supposed to ride alone. He was supposed to ride back with the unit. And so I was like, I don't know what's going on, but he came down and then parked outside the house for like 2 hours, and I was just like, listen, just come inside. You just got back from overseas. I'm not that, that's I've never been that type of wife to like yell at you, or like or give you a hard time. Like, I just don't understand what's going on. So just come inside. I'm gonna leave you alone. I will ask you one question, and then whenever you're ready, let me know when you're ready for the question, and then we'll move on from there. We'll decide. I was like, I'm not gonna argue with you or anything like that. And sure enough, I said later. So after a couple minutes, he was sitting in the couch, just looking all like, whatever, like weird, um, like dazed off. And so I said, all right, so you ready for the question? And then he was like, all right, so do you think that we can fix this? Do you think you want to fix this? You can put the effort to fix this relationship. And I was just like, I'm going to ask you only one time, because I've never begged anybody to be with me, and I've never seen myself doing that. And I just said, if you think we can fix it, then I'll stay. If not, I already had an apartment set up in Raleigh. So it was like an hour away from where we were at. And sure enough, like, I already knew the answer, that what he was gonna say, because I felt like he was he felt like he had to like defend himself. Maybe he like felt like, I don't know. So he said, no, I think that we're two different, very different people. And I was like, okay, so you're choosing. This is what you're choosing, and I'm not gonna go back on this. And so I'm gonna move out, and we'll just separate. And sure enough, it ended up happening. He ended up begging later on, saying that was the worst decision of his life, which it was really sad, and it was really heartbreaking. But then he tried to get an assignment, because I love Italy, and he tried to get an assignment to go to Italy, and he got on an assignment to go to Italy. But I said, as much as I wanted to live there, I was like, I can't do it, because I don't want to mess up Italy being miserable in a miserable marriage.
Right.
So yeah, so I was like, I can't. I was like, and that's the thing. I said, he said, I just thought you would never leave because you had everything you wanted. And I was like, I worked, I worked hard all my life. Like, you met me having a job and paying for my own life, my own livelihood. So, and I know what it's like not to have anything, because I know what it's like going to bed hungry, because my mom was a single mom with 4 girls, and sometimes we just had a glass of milk. So that's it to go to go to sleep, and we struggled a lot, and she made it happen for us. And so I was like, you can't buy a marriage. So that was the end of that. And I ended up moving to Raleigh, got a job in Raleigh, and I was in a more controlled dating era at the time. I was having fun. I joined a social dance group, and I went vegan for 4 years. It was really nice. It was different. I needed to find a church, and I wasn't finding that up there. I still hadn't like kept up with my promise to go back into like church and like being a leader. And I moved back to to the same town. Like, fast forward, moved back to the same town and ended up joining the worship team. But one of the things when one of the impacts that I had talking to that worship leader was that he was like, you gave me your whole introduction of your whole life, and he was like, but you don't have to, from today on, you don't have to keep that story, sharing that story. And I was like, I don't know why. I'm sharing it with you now because of this is the beginning for your thing, for your, maybe people can relate to that.
Yeah.
But he was like, when you introduce yourself from now on, start from here. Like, don't start from your past. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, because automatically it's like the narrative that I'm like, oh, I'm this and this, and I got to see it with a friendship that I'm no longer really close to, but I got to see it with a friendship where she would introduce herself as in, hi, I'm so yeah, my husband left me for a younger girl, and that's how she would introduce herself. And
Right.
so I was like, oh my gosh, is that what I've been doing the whole time? Like, whenever I joined a worship team, I would give my story, or I would try to join a worship team. I would give my story, my whole story of like, I've gone through this, and you don't realize it, but then you think I think about it, and I'm like, why did I do that? Was it for like a pity sometimes? You think like, I want someone to feel bad or like feel like a victim, and that's not at all what I want to be seen as. And it wasn't until like I had a friend who was like, doing that. And I was like, why are you introducing yourself to everybody? Why is the main first conversation? Oh, my husband at 23 years left me for a younger girl, and there's so much more. No one ever knows what happens in a marriage, and who knows? So it's like you're trying to defend yourself. Why? Why do you feel like you have to defend yourself? You can keep going down the rabbit hole. But anyways, so that was impactful for me, and then it kind of like helped me like break free, and it changed something in me that I was just like, I don't know why I've been doing that, why I've been telling people my business. But later on, I got in a position where I was working with medical boards with the Army, and it was a job that I was trying to get into for 6 years. I was trying to get into that job, and it finally got it because there were 2 furloughs, and so they stopped the hiring for that position, and finally got it. And then I got to see how my past helped out women in the military who had gone through
Yes.
sexual trauma. So I was like,
Ashley, I
okay,
love that.
yeah, I got to see. I'll never forget this one. It was she was an officer, a lieutenant, and I was like, listen, you don't have to stay there where you're at right now. I understand that it's like you feel like your life, has been like ruined, or just like you don't see getting out of there. But I was like, I went through something similar, and even though it wasn't the exact scenario, but I went through something similar, and I'm here, and I'm back working for the government, and I'm living the life that I want, buying whatever I want for myself, and enjoying life the way that traveling like I want. I did a lot of traveling and stuff. I went and I got flight lessons. I got 12 hours of flight time. I consider that like one of my life, I guess, like highlights, because I never thought I would do that, because I used to hate heights, and I was just like, what else am I going to do? I started getting myself out there. I went and I jumped out of an airplane, and I was just like, yeah, it's tandem jump. So I was assisted, but still, I was like, I'm gonna do whatever it is that challenges me, um, or my fears. And so she was so grateful that later on she came back and she brought me a gift, and I was just some flowers and just like a very thoughtful letter, and I was just like, this is a fulfilling job. Like, this is like, I'm so glad that I'm able to to use it for something good. And then there was another one that ended up taking it up to Congress, and she ended up wanting me to be on her podcast, but I couldn't because of the liability and because the job. And so, but I was just like, I was rooting for her because they ended up passing a law, like she was making moves. And so but I mean, when I first got to her, I was like, listen, don't stop, don't stop, just keep going up. And this the life is like chess. You just got to know how to play it. Sometimes in the military, mainly the military, would say it's like playing chess. Sometimes you're playing chess, sometimes you're playing checkers. You just got to know, because like some people are going to be here today, but you never know. Like in a couple of years, that person could be retired, could be gone, and then you didn't do what you wanted to do, or you didn't speak up when you needed to speak up for yourself.
Right.
So that's definitely a highlight, I guess, of my life, where I was able to use my story to help service members.
I love
And
that. That's very common though, Ashley, is the idea that when you experience something very
Mhm.
painful and it involves a lot of suffering, not only mentally but emotionally, and it takes a toll on you, it's
Mhm.
often that the victim can fall into, and I say victim, but like you said, you don't want to be introduced as a victim, or you don't want to continue to identify as a victim, but
Right.
you are a victim of that incident, so without
Mhm.
a better way to refer to it, it's very easy to fall into despair, and it's
Mhm.
very easy to fall into hopelessness.
Oh yeah.
And I know that Streaking with Friends is a new venture for me, and bringing this information publicly and doing this, but I have spent countless hours
Mhm.
listening to stories of different people who were hurt in different ways, unrecorded time, right? Not that we were planning on, but we didn't publish anything, just unrecorded one-on-one conversations where people pour their
Right.
hearts out and they're in that pit of despair. And it's always a great reminder to let people know, and especially like in your case, that
Mhm.
it didn't happen in vain, right? It didn't happen without purpose, and it didn't happen without you having the ability to extract some type of lesson out of that experience. Even if, for whatever reason,
Right.
you can't see the lesson in that moment, you are able to relate in a very unique way to someone else who has experienced a similar situation, and you're able to give that person some hope, right? You're able to give
Yeah.
that other person some bit of inspiration to persist and to keep trying and to keep moving on. Whereas if you have not experienced a similar thing, then they would just dismiss your encouragement, they would just dismiss your advice, because they're living in their own mind of, well, Ashley, you can't possibly relate to me, but you're able to come back with, oh yes, I can. Not only can I relate to you, I can, in a sense, kind of do one better, right? Let me tell you what my experience was. And so what I have found is that every single experience that happens, there's something to be learned from it. And if you learn it, the closer you learn it to that experience, the better. But for me personally, I've learned a lot of great lessons over the last few years from things
Yeah.
that occurred in my single digit years and things that occurred in my high school years. And so that's the reason why I'm on this mission, is because I know the power and the value of self reflection and self observation, but at the same time, self acceptance, to where you can extract out of that experience, you can extract out of that something that's worthwhile and something that's valuable to be able
Mhm.
to offer to someone else and pay it forward. Because if they know that you went through that experience and you're still have your head held high and you've
Right.
accomplished X, Y, and Z, or done said things in your in your new identity, or in your new recovered life, if you will, then
Yeah.
maybe that's enough for them to keep going. Actually, talk to me about maybe What a lot of times when you hear someone overcome a difficult situation, they point to or lean on a certain mentor type of relationship. Was there anyone that was in your life that you look to and say, you know what, in some of those dark times or in those difficult moments, I was always able to look to this person or look to this virtue or this different thing for to kind of give me hope. Was there anything like that for you in your life?
Yeah, so I've always had a mentor, and I learned this early when I joined the military. I actually I did it. I automatically did it. Was doing it. Looking up someone, two people that were around the same age and stuff, but they were already moving and doing stuff, right? So like I knew that I didn't want to go to college. I knew that I wouldn't apply myself if I started school right after high school. University right after high school. So I was like, it's okay. I'm gonna do it. They're gonna pay for it. The army's gonna pay for it. So I'm just gonna do it when I go in. So what I started doing was two of my good friends, they were already moving through school like crazy. Like they're about to finish their degree because they had already started. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take one class here and there. Like at least take a couple classes this year. Um, and so I did. I even got to the point to where I was in Iraq, and I even have a picture in Iraq. I was in a bunker just doing my homework and with my laptop. It's not a I looked rough, but still, I have a picture of that. My friend of mine had taken a picture of me. Um, and so I still kept it. I knew that I had to do it because I felt like that's the only way that I had to take advantage of everything that I was like going through, like in the military. Like I have to take advantage of this free school. I ended up graduating on my last year in the army, and I ended up graduating from Campbell University. But I was like just doing a class here and there. But I always looked up to them like, oh, you're almost done. There was one time where I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I had to take oddly enough, it was a religion class because they make you take two classes for that are religious. I think it was like the Old Testament that we were that because it's a Methodist school, and so and I was just like I never thought the Bible was gonna be this difficult. It really like the question, the test, they were so hard, and I was just like I'm not doing this and I stopped for a couple months, and then my friend graduated, and I was like no, I gotta keep going, and so I did. So I'm glad I did. But every season of my life, I've had somebody that I've looked up to, or I've focused on somebody. Where do I want to be? Okay. I read a lot of self-help books, and so there is one person that I grew up with though in that Pentecostal church, and she still goes to a Pentecostal church, but she's different. I'll just say that, and she's always prayed for me. So after that incident, where the sexual assault, I came to Florida for a couple of days. I came to church and I didn't tell anybody about it. And then she was like, "Can I pray for you?" And I was like, "Sure." And she prayed for me, and she was like, "Something happened." And she was like, "I need to pray for you. Something happened to you. I can feel it." And she's like, "I don't want to tell you any more specifics." And so she prayed for me, and I felt like I was delivered. But ever since then, like we've been meeting for coffee, and that was in 2000. Yeah. And she was
That's
a
great.
leader
So
in the
she's played a big
still a
role in
leader.
your life. Yeah, she's played a big role in
Yeah,
that. What do you
yeah,
feel
for
like?
sure.
What do you feel like was one of the biggest, I guess, adjustments in belief or adjustments in understanding that you have had, or biggest lessons learned after having gone through the experience that you had? Right? Yeah, something that you maybe thought something was a certain way, and then it changed after that experience.
Well, for a while, I was kind of mad. So whenever the sexual assault happened, I was like, God, I know you don't want me to hate you because it was Easter weekend, and I was just like, this is Easter weekend. Why is this happening on Easter weekend out of all the days? And I was like, God, I'm not gonna hate you. I'm not gonna be mad at you. I would say that as the situation was happening, and I so later on though, automatically though, I was like, I didn't want to go to church. Like automatically, I didn't want to like go in. Like I don't know why, but anyways, what I realized was my mom's. I was paying attention to how my mom was loving on people, and then I got. Oh man, there's so much in my life, and we're already like 50 minutes. Um, I had a friendship, a guy who was in the military with me, who was having substance abuse problems, to where he had to get relieved basically. And I was like, man, I don't know what happened to this guy. So I was just one day I was just walking in North Carolina down. I live downtown in a condo downtown, and it's a very cute little town, very small. It's like a mile long, and and they had just put in a baseball field, and they had a Christmas party. And I told my friend, I was like, oh, I got too fast. So this person that got kicked out, I was like, that same week on Monday, I thought, man, I wonder what happened to this guy. I don't know why I'm thinking about him. I was like, maybe I was like, he's probably 6 feet under, is what I thought, and I let it go, right? That I my friend is like, hey, there's a Christmas party. The church is doing the Christmas party at the baseball field, and I was like, okay, I'll be your plus one, because I live downtown, so all I had to do was cross the street. And so we went across the street, and I hear this guy's voice, and he has like a specific voice. It's he's Puerto Rican, but he has like this. I don't know if anybody's gonna understand, but it's very different. And I was like, I just heard, and his name is I don't want to say his name, but anyways, I say his name even though he wouldn't mind because he's into ministry now. But and I say his name, and then next thing you know, I see that he's hugging somebody, and I'm like, I can't believe that's him. It had been over 10 years since I seen this man. I saw him. It had been like 15 years, and I was like, what? Is that you? I said his name, is that you? And he was like, no way. We hugged and started crying. And then he was like, I'm in church. Can you believe it? I'm in church. It's like, I'm helping the homeless. I'm helping the addicted, and I was just like, there's no way. Like, I was like, I thought about you this week. And I said to myself, like, there's no way that he made it out alive. Like that he's not 6 feet under. And so why was I giving you all of that? Why
Well,
so that brought me back in basically.
the
I was
question
like,
that I asked was around what beliefs did change as a result of that experience? Yeah. So was there
yes.
any adjusted perspective?
So that's what it took. So that me seeing his testimony, like it was like my like, wow, God, that's a miracle. Like
I'd
that's
love to
un
have him. I'd love to meet him. I'd love to have him on.
Yeah, I would definitely. And and so that brought me back in. And so I was like, I don't want to get overwhelmed because I know what it's like to get overwhelmed working in the church. So and that's why I was like going into the church, like working every day of the week. And so um I was like, you know what, I'm not going to join the church, but I'm going to join you in your group and your ministry. So that's where I started with the homeless group, and then I ended up like, working every Saturday. So every Saturday I was serving, and then later on it came back to where I got rebaptized, and I got back into it, and started going to like elevation worship because I was right there in North Carolina. So it was amazing. It was like there's so much. It's when I so all of a sudden he had access to the recording days at elevation worship, and I was just like, worship is my thing. Like, this is like, I can't believe that he would be like, just come with me. And I would go, and this was during the pandemic. So they didn't really have an audience. It was just if you got an invite to go. I started going, and then I was in the recording for two of their songs,
No kidding.
just as the audience. Yeah. But one of their songs was a song that I just couldn't get out of my. I just started when I heard it. I just started crying. I just started crying, and I was like, I felt like something was coming, and it was about, and it's from, oh my gosh, it's from Chandler Moore sings it with Elevation Worship, and it was saying, I'd have to give it to you offline. I don't know if you, but the song was speaking about how something, even, how to just to trust in God basically. But the way the verbiage, the words were just like, it was like it was prepping me for it. And I was just like, why am I crying so much? And there was such an anointing that they ended up making another song to finish it out. So the song was ended up being really long, and I was just like, I left there, and everybody was like in awe. Like everybody was just like, it was the presence was so intense. And then a month later, my mom passed away.
Hmm.
And I was just like, oh, this is why. And it was just like, and my mom was so excited. She was like, I can't believe you get a chance to do that. This is like so amazing for you that you get to be there. And then the um
It's okay.
the worship leader that had talked to me about earlier, he was like, you're gonna go through something. He was like, you're gonna go through something really hard. Um, and this was all before. And he was like, you're gonna go through something really hard, and but he's got you. He's got you. And I was like, after everything that I've gone through, like, what could I possibly? And I told my mom, I was like, Mom, like, this, I was prophesied to, and I was told that, like something, when I graduated from their worship team academy, kind of, I was like, Mom, they told me that something's gonna happen, which is like, I don't know what, but I don't know. I've gone through so much that I can't even imagine something, you know, something worse. And then, sure enough, like, I lost my mom. But those two, I lost her to COVID, and that was like the worst because like I had to take over, and there's because part of my job in the military was dealing with with identifying bodies, service member bodies, and giving their belongings to their loved ones, and doing requesting funeral homes, and doing all of that, which is, I feel like, another way. You see, like, I was 18 then. Like you were talking earlier about being young and realizing things, and I didn't realize why. I was like, man, this is like, I had the night shift, the graveyard shift, a lot of the time, and I was just like, I'm only 18, and just putting on the uniform is what made you a professional. So like you had to represent. And I was just like, and I'm like seeing all these young dead, folks, and I was just like, I was like, I don't know why I have to deal with so many of them. And then fast forward, when my mom passed away, then I was just like, oh, I know what's gonna happen. I know what's gonna happen next. I know, like, I have to make a decision. I know that I have to pick a funeral home and all this stuff. And I have three sisters, and my sisters, they haven't gone through anything like this. They've stayed in the same town, like, creating their families and stuff. And so, like, I felt like I had to take that charge from them, and like from that pain, kind of from having to hear the doctors tell them, like, hey, she's not gonna make it overnight. She's lucky if she makes it overnight, or like. And so I would just tell them, like, just pray, pull out your, fast or whatever. And so I have seen how God has kind of like prepped me, throughout my journey for what's next. I wasn't ready for my mom. I wasn't ready for losing my mom, but
Right.
yeah, and then later on, like this year, I lost my husband, which I wasn't ready for that either. But that's another. That's what I'm working on right now. That's that
So
part
talk to me
of
about
my
that. What
story.
do you mean you lost your husband? So tell me, what's that story?
Yeah, so you had a book that you had recommended, and that's how I got to your page. You had this love is a love book. What is it called? It's a little old book. And it's teaches, I guess it was teaching how to love. I read it. Yes, that one.
The way to
Yes, the way
love.
to love. And so my husband, he was struggling with addiction, and I had given him that book, and he read it, and I was like so shocked that he read it, because he usually didn't read. And I even like wrote it once on your page, because I was like, oh, he read it. My God, I had a book and he read it. But it's unfortunate that he relapsed after going to rehab. He relapsed when he went back to work.
Hmm.
And so that it was a very long week in August. And I lost my mom in August 2021, and I lost him now this past August. So it was, I don't understand. I don't understand the timing there. I'm sure probably eventually, but so unfortunately, yeah, my husband was involved in a car accident. He left here. Had kind of given him an ultimatum, in a sense. I told him, like, hey, you either go live with your dad, but you can't live here like that without getting any help, without trying again. Like, you have to keep
Right.
trying.
Right.
And so I so he went on a walk, and then he never came back. He was hit by a truck.
Hmm.
And so that's what I have a hard time with, because I'm like, maybe I could have said something different. Maybe I could have, like, I have a really hard time with, but then again, it's like, I don't know. I know that I can't live. I know that I couldn't live a life like that because there was no sleeping. I was, constantly worried because it got to a point to where he was hallucinating, and so he was, I think, actually the day that he passed, he said he saw some men around, and I was just like, what are you talking about? My guardian angels? It must be my guardian angels. Yeah, and he was seeing, like, so I was like, oh God, like, tell me this is not it, because you always hear like people see loved ones before you go. And so he was like, let them in, they're outside the door, there's one outside the window and there's one at the door. And he was like, let your friends in, let your friends in. And then he was like, actually, I'm not stupid, I know what's happening. And I was like, well, I don't know what's happening. Like, I was like,
Was
maybe you're
he
talking
out
about
of
my
it? Was he loaded? Was he like under the influence or no?
Yeah, he was under the influence. Yeah.
Oh,
And I
okay.
called 911. I called an ambulance. They came. They lasted maybe 10 minutes. It was the worst response team ever. They lasted maybe 10 minutes. They took his blood pressure. They said it was high, but we know why it's high. They proceeded with asking him three questions, which was the stupidest thing ever. I don't know. I feel guilty about that too. Not like pushing extra, but I told them like, hey, look, he has an issue, like, and I'm just hoping that maybe it's recorded on their cameras, because I decided to open a case on it. But they came, they took his blood pressure, they asked him the three questions, which was, the first one was what year we were in. My husband was really smart. He was intelligent. Besides this, the addiction, he was really a smart guy, an electrician. He did plans, so many plans, anyway, blueprints and stuff for people. And I was always amazed at how inventive he was, like how he would just make anything happen. And next thing you know, they asked him what year it was. He's like 23, and then they asked him, "Do you want to go in?" And he said no, but he hesitated before he said no. And then like for a while, like he was like no. And then the third question was who was the president, and he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, I know he knows who he is because we've spoken about the president. So they were like, no, we're just gonna leave, and they left. And then 3 hours later he died. So it sucked. It sucks because there's also like there was a page online that
Where'd
posted
he
he
go
had
for a walk? Was he walking like on the interstate or something?
he walked on the interstate. Yeah, but here's the thing. He told me one time that the walking on the interstate helps him get back home, because he walks like really far out. He walks like for 3 hours. Yeah, 3 hours. But he says he comes back, whatever. But I think that whatever he got, was must have been laced with something, because it was. I had never seen him hallucinate like that. Like I'd never seen him to where he was looking at the ceiling and he was like smiling at the ceiling. And I was like, what are you looking at? I would just explain. And then at one point, he was like, you're not going to punish me? And I know that I'm not going to be able to reason with him the way that he was. So I was quiet for just trying to ask questions, like, and begging him to get help, to let me go get him, to get, like, help and get corrected. And it's
It's very
unfortunate.
difficult. It's very
Yeah.
difficult to deal with substance abuse issues and
Yeah.
the helplessness, right? To be care so much and to want so well for people who are challenged by that,
Right.
and there's almost nothing you can do against their will, right? Like if they don't allow for help and they don't want to get help, there's almost nothing you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's what I guess what I battle with. I know that I've seen this plenty of times from other cases that I've dealt with and stuff.
Have you forgiven yourself?
I guess I think I have, honestly. The only thing is that I have a problem. I feel like forgiving him, and I know it sounds selfish, but I felt like I feel like I need to forgive him, because like I just couldn't understand how we were doing so great, and then he felt like it was worth trying it again after we had done so well after he got out of rehab. And things were looking up, and I kept telling, and I told him, I was like, your voice changes, because he tried to hide it from me, and I was like, I already knew instantly. something's wrong. And I was like, and I kept telling him, if you don't tell me, God's gonna show me, because I pray and I'm very close to God. And I'm like, I asked him to reveal to me what I need to see. And so his voice automatically starts getting raspy. He starts like a little cough, and I was just like, I already know that it's happening. And I was just like, if you let me help you, like, we can still save this. And I know that I feel like I could see like he was scared to admit it, but I already knew, and I was just like, I already know it's happening. You only have a couple days before it's like gonna get really bad, because this is like probably like your day 3 on, and I can tell already that you're not making the right decisions. Like you're not making sense when you're speaking. And so there was a lot of like back and forth bickering to where with that, because then he was just like, oh, you're not letting me be. All of a sudden it was oh, you don't let me go out with my friends. And I'm like, I never stopped you from, you don't have any friends here. Like, I never ever stopped you from going out with anybody. But I did say I didn't want him driving my car. Yeah, I didn't want him driving my new car. I got a new Volvo and stuff, and I feel like it's taken me a long time to get to where I wanted to be. And I was just like, I'm not gonna let you ruin that by, first of all, not only yourself. There's other people on the road, and you could be putting someone in danger if like all of a sudden, because then he would see like, oh, the numbers, they're telling me something. The numbers in vehicle in tags. And so it was a life that I never thought I would be living, or a reality that I didn't expect ever to put myself in. But I do know, past in summary, that the day that he passed away, around like 2 hours before he passed away, my mentor, she called me and she said, Ashley, pray for his salvation. And I got annoyed at her. I was like, man, I was like, what do you mean pray for his salvation? Like, no, like nothing's gonna happen. Like, he's gonna be fine. Like, um
Mm.
but I did pray for his salvation regardless. I still prayed. I was like, I don't know why she's saying that. I'm like, why are people so judgmental? Like, it's just a relapse. We're gonna get back on track. Like it's gonna be like, like he's not gonna die. Like, I just kept thinking, like, no, there's no way that he's gonna die. He just went for a walk and stuff. But she was like, I just feel it in my heart. Like, you need to pray for his salvation. And I was like, all right. And then I hung up the phone, whatever. And I prayed. I still prayed. And then later on, after the state troopers came to give me the notice, which was very much later on, and they waited. He passed away at 3:45 p.m. and they didn't come over until 9 p.m. and it was all over the news already. Like, I already knew, like, it was him. My sisters were like, we didn't want to tell you, but I saw it online. I was like, I saw the social media page from town, and so I already knew, like, deep down. As a matter of fact, before everything happened, I had messaged him and I said, I'm gonna lay down and I'm gonna take a nap, because I was sick. I was like really really sick that day, to where I had lost like my voice, and I wouldn't doubt it if I had COVID. But I was so weak and sick, and I was just like, I'm just gonna lay down because I've been up all night with you with the situation. Because he was like, there's an ambulance outside. Like, he was like, there's an ambulance outside the window, and I'm like, I opened the windows. There's no one there. Like, you can see there's no one there. And he took the dog. He lost the dog, and it's like, oh, dark 30. Like, it's so it was a long night, and so I ended up laying down for like a couple minutes, and I'm like, I can't lay down. And then all of a sudden, in my mind, I heard, I don't like you sleeping, taking nap. I don't like you taking naps. And I like shot up off the bed because it felt like I had just heard his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that was around the time that he had passed away later on, because I kept asking the state trooper, what was the time of death? What was the time of death? And she was like, oh, 4 something. And I'm like, no, he didn't die at 4 o'clock. Then when finally the medical examiner, when they did the report, it was 3:45, and I was like, that's exactly when I shot up out of bed. So that happened, and it sucks because he's an only child. So I know his mother's hurting, and I don't know what to do. But I know that I'm trying to grieve myself, and allowed kind of something else that I don't know if it's the right thing. But I've always believed in the motto from my old church, which is love God, love each other, love the world.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, like, we're here to love people. And so his ex-wife had reached out, but the way she approached me, she had said some kind of things that I just like. I was like, eh. So she had kids with him, which he had tried to reach out, and for some reason, whatever the reason was, I wasn't involved in their conversation, so I don't know what the truth was, but they didn't get to catch up, basically. My
Mm,
husband and the daughter and whatever the reason is, they have their version, and then my husband had the version that he wasn't allowed to see him. But anyways, I'm not here. I told her I'm not here to
sure. Yeah, I get it.
like figure that out or judge you for it. You guys, that was your relationship. And But then she was like, "Oh, he was my person," and that like struck me because I'm like, how can you say that to the current spouse of like
Right.
I feel like it was so inappropriate, and so it kind of hurt, and also that she had like written on her social media, I had already forgiven you, and I love you and all this stuff. And I'm just like, that's so uncomfortable because she wants to be there for me, she says, but I just can't allow, like, so that's something I'm working with. But at the same time, right after that happened, the sermon on Sunday was about it being about the mission, or even Jesus before he was crucified, he asked, "Can this cup be passed from me?" And it wasn't, because there's a bigger picture, and the bigger picture is, you know, basically him showing his love for us, that to save us. And so it's like, so then I kind of felt like that I had to, not ignore her reaching out and stuff like that, because she's also suffering in her way. But, the bigger picture is like, show God's love. I found kind of like a happy medium now to that, because even though I could be like, no, you did this and this and this, but who am I to judge? I'm not perfect. I've done my share of, things in this life, or not where I haven't been kind before. It's not the time to, when everybody's grieving, it's not the time to be ugly.
Right.
But I'm still battling with it, because it does bother me that she felt like could say like he was my person. Like, what do you say to that? Like, actually,
It's okay.
we woke up every
You just
day.
forgive her. You just forgive her. That's it. You just
Yeah,
forgive her because she's hurting too, right?
yeah, right. Yeah. So
So him being her person, him being, if she makes that claim, if she says that he's her person, that doesn't take away anything from y'all's relationship, right? That
right,
doesn't take away from anything that he meant to you. That doesn't take
right,
away from anything that you meant to him. That's just her view, and that's her stance on what he meant to her. And there was, I'm guessing, some unresolved, there was some
yeah,
unresolved emotion, there was unresolved issues there that weren't able to actually be fleshed out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So
true.
your opportunity is to just realize that it was never about you and her. It was never about you and him anyway. It's just always it's an opportunity for you to grow through this experience, right? Ashley's already
Right,
endured. You've already endured so much. You've already been through so much. You've already had so many different challenges that you've overcome, and this is another demonstration that you're here today, healed enough and comfortable
mhm.
enough to even be able to tell the story. So what a great, testament is that of your strength and kind of who you are. One thing I would ask, Ashley, I don't hear a tone of like being a victim, right? Like I don't hear a tone of like woe is me. So do you mind sharing like what do you think it is about you, or what do you point to that lets you be such a, I guess, person that might still look to the positive of your situation in spite of everything you've been through?
Well, the thing is that, going back to my faith, no one is gonna leave here without experiencing some kind of pain or some kind of heartache, or or loss. And now I see, which I don't know why I was trying to rush and be a grown up. As you get older, you start losing
Mhm.
so many people, and it sucks. But especially your mom, go through a pandemic, and you just never think that like the history again, it's like gonna repeat itself as you get older. And that's, when
Right.
we were growing up, we were going to church and stuff, and we would go to funerals sometimes, but just because it was just us, everybody from church was going, to pay the respect. So now it's like, oh, now I'm setting up a funeral, two funerals at that. And so it just like, I know that not, it took me a long time to understand that, because I just couldn't believe it. Like, that's not, I was like, I'm a good person. It's not fair. Like, I used to say that, like, it's not fair. Like, that I had to go through what I went through, that I wasn't believed by the leadership, or like they were trying to cover it up because, it was, it looked ugly on the unit, and that I was spoken about. All of a sudden, there was like one leader who was like telling the other service members to stay away from me because I dated wild people, and I only dated that one person, that the incident. And so I was just like, I'm a good person. Like, I don't. So yeah, I had my moment where I was like that, and but I know that I just keep reminding myself about, Jesus was on that cross, and he didn't do anything, nothing to deserve it. And, like, no sin. And we like, we sin every day, and he never said that we wouldn't go through stuff. He just said, he's gonna make us either fireproof, or you know he was going to take care of it, basically. And that's all I know. That what's happened so far, and it's happened real quick. My previous job, my supervisor not my supervisor, one of the doctors that I work with, she's a psychologist. She ended up losing her mom with COVID the year before. And so, and she was like, and no one, and she came to my rescue when my mom passed away. And she was like, listen, this is what you're gonna go through. And she's like, it's okay. You're gonna have dreams. Don't worry. She's gonna come to you in dreams. And so she kind of like guided me through my grief, which I was like, this is why you went through yours.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's because like I was gonna need somebody, because like I was a mess. I couldn't. My mom was like my best friend. We literally spoke like multiple times a day. I was sending her,
Mm.
videos every day. We had become so close. But one of the main things that my mom, that one of the main lessons that we have from our mom, is that as she kept growing in her faith, like, she showed unconditional love. Like, it was just, I have never experienced that kind of love from anybody. And it's like, your mom, the person who brought you into this world, is like gone, and she knew what that was like. And so even to recently, I've had a coworker who lost her mom in an accident, and in a vehicle accident. And she's also, a believer. She has, and but I get a call all of a sudden, and mind you, I was getting ready to leave this for my next promotion, and I was getting ready to leave that job, and I was just like, why can't I get, like, I was like fighting with God, and I was like, why do I have to still be in this job? Because it's really miserable. And I was like, I don't understand why. It's taking me so long, because it normally doesn't take me this long with my qualifications. It doesn't normally take me this long to move on to the next. And then I get the call, and she was like, and we weren't that close, but we had spoken about God a few times and stuff. And then I get the call, and she was like crying, Ashley, my mom, my mom, my mom. And I was like, oh, I went back through the motions again, and I was just like, oh, this is why. I was like, this is why I had to be here for her. And I was just like, what are you doing right now? Like, you know, how can I be here for you? Because there's no words, no words. No one will ever understand unless you go through it. And I felt terrible, because I would, always say like, oh, sorry for your loss of people, but until you know that human being, your mother, is no longer on this earth, until you can really feel that, it's you can't understand it until you go through it. And then so I was able to be there for her. And then next thing that happened was in the last month, there was somebody I had met, and I was just like, I don't know why we met, but I have a feeling, I was like, there's a reason why. Because in my whole life, everybody that I've met, it's been for a reason. Something's happened, something, not negative necessarily, but something, a lesson had to be learned. And I was just like, I don't know why you're in my life, but we're gonna find out. And do you know that last month he calls me, and it was out of nowhere, and he was like, hey Ashley, my mom just passed away, and I was just like, whoa, like so somebody else, and I was just like, okay, I was like, all right, like there's again, like we can do, we're gonna do this one day at a time, because there's just you're gonna be in shock for a long time, and you're not gonna understand the why you feel like you the way that you do, because no one can prepare you for that. And so yeah, so it's been, even with everything that I've gone through, even with the death of my mom, I've been able to be there for people. And so I don't know, I guess it's gonna be the same thing with my husband. I don't know. I know that for my husband was very giving. He was very he would give his shirt off his back, and there was times where there was a time where he was on the street, because he had used before he had gone to rehab. He had used, and he was on the street walking barefoot. He lost everything, backpack, everything, clothes. Well, he had a sweater and a shirt, and he had lost a sweater. He had I had and he told me that somebody was very nice to him and offered their shoes to him. And they asked him, like, hey, can I help you? He was just sitting outside of Family Dollar, and they were like, hey man, can I help you? And he was like, yeah, somebody was really nice. And then I found $1, and I was just like, okay. Anyways, but like we would be short on, not short on money, but we would just have our last like bit off the budget, whatever, like that we could really spend, and he would go and he'll like hand it over to not saying this is like entirely good, but he would hand it over to, he didn't care, he would hand it up to if there was some homeless, anybody homeless. And I would just be like, really, you just gave him like your last $10, like. And he would be like, he was like, yeah, like one time he knew of these people that were immigrants, and he had taken his mom's card and went and bought them, like, and they were sleeping on the floor, and he went and bought them like mattresses and stuff, and
Hmm.
clothes, and from Walmart, took it to Walmart and bought them pillows and just basics. And so he was very giving, so fast. So what I'm trying to say is that um I created kind of like my own bags with my husband's. He loves stars, so he has a bunch of star tattoos. I got somebody to pull the design, create a design with his tattoos, and so he has all the stars, and created a. He used to have a nickname, Danny Stars. He gave himself with us, with the family. And so I created somewhat serving the community. I these blue drawstring bags, and then I put food in there. I put like underwear, socks, and hand warmers, especially for right now in the cold. And so I just do that in his honor. And
That's cool. So you've been doing
so
that lately?
yeah, yeah. I started in the last month, and I just, so what my goal is, right, is for people to just be in the car, have a couple bags, like, so I pass them out with coworkers and stuff, and I tell them, like, here, keep a bag in your car. Whenever you see one of them at a stoplight or anything like that, you just hand it to them, and then I have a message in the bag where it has like a prayer, a prayer for salvation, because my husband was prophesied to before he passed away, like 2 months before he passed away. He was prophesied to that he was going to bring a lot of people to God. And so I know that God's word is not
Maybe
void. So I was like,
that's through
maybe,
you.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, maybe that's, so I was at a stoplight, and then I saw, and then the thought came, and I was like, oh, was it supposed to be me?
So
Like,
you have to
I
carry
was
this. You
talking to
have to
God.
carry the torch.
Yeah, so yeah, I got these really, I created a page, actually. It's on I created an Instagram page for it. But we pray over every bag, and so we just hand them out whenever you see someone. And it's been great. My first person, by the way, which is a guy named Milvin. If you have a chance to pray for him, he has a tumor in his throat, and so he
Hmm.
asked me for prayer. But
What's his
yeah,
name?
it's been Melvin, Mr. Melvin.
Melvin. Yeah.
Melvin. Yeah, he asked for me. He was like, "Can you please pray for me?" And so I did, and um, yeah. So it's been,
I'm glad you mentioned that page. So Ashley, thank you so much for sharing and being so vulnerable and transparent about your situation. I know it was probably
yeah,
tough, but I would imagine that you're available at some level. If folks want to reach out to you, let's say they're touched by your story, or they want to reach out to you some way, are you open to being contacted or people finding you on social media?
Yeah, that's fine. It's not a problem. I'm sure there's someone out there, I guess, that could relate.
Okay. So where can they find you?
Rose Ash D. That's or my husband's page, the one for his in memory is Danny Stars, and it's Rose Ashley both in TikTok and in IG, and then the Danny Stars is Danny Danny, and then Stars with two Z's at the end because he was always a little extra with the Z's.
Got it.
So, but thank
All
you so
right.
much for having me. I appreciate you, and I know
Perfect.
it's late.
Of course, no worries. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that we include that info in the summary so people can find you there. And again, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.